don't know what to call the question, that it's a platitude really to excuse me. That the assessment of this government is far below par. That is a statement of fact. It's not whether it is true, it's how bad or how degenerate it is. Look, Nigeria has almost become a country of one crisis per day. You had last week we were dealing with the case of the Crooked Cup that was being celebrated in the day, and who advertises himself as a celebrity in the day, and then becomes a member of a drug cartel in the night. Then again, you see the tragic drama of the NNPC and the adulterated fuel that they brought into the country. The NNPC management addressed a press conference in which he listed a number of importers whom he claimed were responsible for the importation, only for the importers to say that, look, this is the GMD NNPC addressing a press conference. So how formal it was, it's formal statement naming some importers responsible for the importation, and it turned out to be a lie. All the importers who are distributing the fuel got it from a subsidiary of NNPC called Duke Oil. All the other ones listed like MRS and so on and so forth, they were not the importers. They got the supply, from Duke Oil, which is a subsidiary of the NNPC. Now, how do you reconcile the two? That the GMD of NNPC addressed a press conference, so he was lying. He was telling the country a lie. Now, in any other country but Nigeria, that person will have lost his job because it's such a. But because there are no longer standards for this government, you just keep on falling below par until probably it sinks to the bottom. So it's you can go on and on in almost all aspects of the society or the economy or whatever it is. They announced they were going to remove the petroleum subsidy some months ago, and we're going to be distributing 5,000 naira to 40 million Nigerians. And then when it was pointed out how ridiculous, the whole thing looks like, it was a show in the first instance. I had never believed that they were going to go ahead with it. And the reason I didn't believe is that the oil subsidy regime allows for padded contracts that they can get a lot of money. They can claim that Nigeria imports 22 trillion liters per day or whatever it is, and it is padded over, either under or over, just to make money. We all know the oil subsidy regime has become a very cheap avenue of making tons of money. And here we are facing an election. So it makes sense to me that the government, or members of APC, want that regime to go on so that they can get a lot of money to finance the election. So, and in all ratings that, look, I don't know if you read I'm sure you will have seen the statement by the Financial Times, right? Giving an assessment of this government and the conclusion and what is said about the president and this government. It's referring to the government as some in terms of calamity, or disastrous, near disaster, near calamity, So, of course, you have the Transparency International, that has rated Nigeria consistently lower, sinking lower and lower into the pit of corruption since this government came on board. And so you can go on and, it's, and then tragedy tragedy has become normalized, has been normalized, right? Today, if you pick up a newspaper and you read that 100 people have been kidnapped in Zamfara State, you just flip to the next page. It is no longer news. If you read that 20 people or 30 people have been killed somewhere, you just flip, go on. It has become, that is the new Nigerian normal. That is an indication of the extent to which this country has gone, in the far in the wrong direction. There is no image to be made for this government. The image of a government is as good as the reputation what the government itself does. And so the only thing that you see is that the disconnect between what the so-called image makers, the media aides say, and the reality on ground. We're telling you stories and which is far different. You wonder if they are talking about the same country. If they claim that Nigerians, all Nigerians are PDP, therefore they're against the government. So what about outsiders? So are they partisan? You see the kind of things they say about this government. I mean, so as a political advisor to the president, well, I was a member of the media management team. One thing that I know is, look, first, I mean, the image of a government really is as good as the image, as what the person does, as the substance of his government. Now, there are, of course, short-term, mid-term, and long-term perspectives to image making, right? If you have a conscientious president, for instance, a patriotic president, for instance, now, who takes very necessary, consequential, viable step, takes those policies that may be painful in the short term, but is in the long-term interest of the country. There is that aspect to the management of a good president, of a substantially good president, that often they are, that's why you hear this cliche that the politician looks forward to the next election, whereas the statesman thinks in terms of the next generation, right? If your consciousness, if your objective, if what you are looking at for is how the populism in the short term, you are not likely to be a good president. You may be a good president, you may mesmerize the people for the short populism, right? So these are the intricacies of managing the image of a president. You may have a president who personally, right, whose personality can be aggressive or raucous or offensive, that's the personality, and the style may not be, but the concrete policies on the ground may be good, right? So there's also the element of style. A good president, you must cultivate all those habits, the style, your personality, and then of course the substantial policies. So it is in the area of style, how it comes across to the public, that gives room for you to manage, to tinker with that. First, you must have, as if you want to do a good job, there must be the irreducible minimum of a government that is substantially good, that is conscientious, that is alive to its responsibilities, that has a vision, of lifting up society. That is the irreducible minimum, right? Now, if that is taken care of, if you can assume that about a president, then the job then the jobs, that is in the management of the image of that president devolves largely now on the media managers, right? That so at all times you try to explain to the people that they will reconcile what may look as short-term difficulties or to the long-term interest of the country. Now, of course, you must be credible when you are saying, what I mean by being credible is that you must have had a record also that bears out what you are saying. That, okay, the president, look at what he has done, look at his reputation, look at his record, look at what he has done. So if he does something now that is painful or in the short term, I can convince you that, look, it's a necessary sacrifice, for a better tomorrow. So these are the areas in which you have, but in a situation, so I don't blame, it's difficult to, I sympathize with the media managers of Buhari because it's such a, there is hardly nothing to manage about him. I mean, right? So it's not somebody, look, I don't like, I've said all things about this government, but how do you manage a president? How do you manage the image of a president like Buhari? I mean, it's so difficult to do that. Well, in one respect, interestingly, prior to his becoming president in 2015, he had a fairly, good reputation, right? In terms of fighting corruption, things tough. That was being a serious government, when he was military head of state, which of course was part of the myth that was responsible for him being elected in 2015. But at the same time, the downside of that image, even at that time, was this, tendency towards nepotism, lopsided insularity, nepotism, being contrary to what you will say that it belongs to nobody and belongs to everybody. It makes you know. Not that it gives you the impression, it makes you know that, look, I'm for some I'm not, there is clear cut. There is no, there are some positions in this country today, right, that if a vacancy occurs there, you can predict with certainty where the appointee who is going to fill the vacancy will come from and where it will not come from, depending on the strategic nature of the vacancy or utility of the place. So it's taking to the extreme. Is what it does is almost borders on apartheid, So, and then of course, now you couple that with, embarrassing incompetence, and what you have is what you have in Nigeria today. I mean, so it's so difficult to, is it in terms of security? Is it in terms of corruption? Is it in terms of, we look at every aspect of Nigerian society and it's a sorry case, So there is little that the media managers can do. But of course, these media managers, not only because they don't have a credible product to market in the first place, but in their own case, they now make it worse by going overboard, in telling us, exaggerating, not only distorting and exaggerating a non-existent image of the president. They will tell you Nigeria has never been this good. He has done this, he has done infrastructure, he has, and then you laugh. And then, of course, it also becomes counterproductive. When you lie, when propaganda, there's a limit to which, you can successfully indulge in propaganda. For propaganda to be useful, it must have to be credible. It must have some basis in fact. But in a situation where you are saying that the president of Nigeria, President Buhari, has done more in providing infrastructure than the president of America, of the US in the past, that is a silly statement to say. I mean, it's ridiculous.